Hi, I'm Lindsey, and I'm talking with medtech industry leaders on how they change lives for a better world.
The inventions and technologies are fascinating, and so are the people who work with them.
There was a period of time where I realized fundamentally my job was to go hang out with really smart people that are saving lives and then do work that would help them save more lives.
I got into the business to save lives, and it is incredibly motivating to work with people who are in that same business, saving or improving lives.
What better industry than where I get to wake up every day and just save people's lives?
These are extraordinary people doing extraordinary work, and this is The Leading Difference. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leading Difference podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey, and today I am excited to introduce you to my guest, Jessica Richter. Jessica is the Executive Vice President and General Manager at Veranix, a global provider of end-to-end solutions that accelerate medtech innovation through deep expertise and integrated resources. As the leader of Veranix's Contract Research Organization and Consulting Services business unit, she oversees clinical trial strategy and execution, clinical data services, regulatory affairs, quality and compliance, market access, and reimbursement. She also manages operations, client engagement, business development, and performance tracking. A seasoned leader in medical devices and diagnostics, Jessica has extensive experience in software as a medical device, surgical innovation, oncology, aesthetics, cardiology, and gastroenterology. Her tenure at Medtronic and Becton Dickinson shaped her expertise in commercialization, sales strategy, physician education, patient advocacy, and change management. Beyond her current role, Jessica serves on the boards of MedtechWOMEN and UCLA's Technology Development Group. She actively advises startups, accelerators, and universities, including MedTech Innovator, UC Berkeley's Master of Translational Medicine program, the Mayo Clinic's Executive Steering Committee for the Surgical Innovation Summit, and UCLA Biodesign. Thank you so much for being here, Jessica. I'm so excited to speak with you today.
Likewise, Lindsey, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you to MedTech.
Awesome. Yeah, happy to. So I was born and raised in California. I am the youngest of three girls, and my entire family is really in the healthcare delivery field. So both my grandfathers were surgeons. My mother is a nurse. Both my sisters are clinical psychologists. And so when I went to school, I had aspirations at one point to get into medicine. And then through a really challenging organic chemistry class, kind of started to realize that maybe the practice of medicine wasn't where I belonged. And so I initially graduated from Berkeley, had my sights set on potentially doing something in communications, and started off in business to business sales in the telecom industry. So as far from medtech as maybe one could think. Had some experience with software. This is when Blackberries were a thing, if you remember those. And then a friend of mine was a recruiter and reached out and said, "Hey, I know that you're into medical and into medicine, and that was something you were interested in. Have you ever considered a career in medical device sales?" And frankly, I didn't even know that that existed. I mean, this was 20 years ago. So this was before, internet and all of those things existed, obviously, but it wasn't as pervasive as it is now. And so I wasn't even aware that these jobs existed. The fact that you could be working on the delivery of care, but not be a healthcare provider was an eye-opening moment. And so I got in and started actually working at a surgical company called Dayball. It's part of CR Bard, which is now a part of Becton Dickinson. And I cut my teeth in medical device sales. And then I went on to work in a commercial role within other companies, Given Imaging, Covidien, Medtronic. I ascended to sales leadership, working with key opinion leaders, working on the patient advocacy side. And then about 8 years ago, I had the opportunity through an organization that we'll talk a little bit more about called MedtechWOMEN that I was involved in to learn about a consultancy that was looking for a head of business development and marketing. It was a small group called Experian Group. I joined them and then within 9 months was promoted to chief operating officer, which was a position that I absolutely loved because we were working on the pre-commercial side of things and regulatory, quality systems, clinical trials. And I had always had experience in the post-commercial side. So eyes open to what happens, everything leading up to commercial. And I got a masterclass from my colleagues there, learning so much about what happens again pre-commercial. But then one of the other things that came out very quickly is I've always been someone who loves operational efficiency. And I know that's not sexy or cool, but it just like seeing something that isn't working optimally and get it working optimally is something that brings joy. So I had the opportunity to do that with an experienced group and then really help the organization, which was already very successful, go from a very successful kind of local consultancy to a much larger, broader group with a broader footprint, more global client base. And then we were acquired by the firm that I currently work with called Marinex. And that really exploded the capabilities of what was a 50-person consultancy to now over 1,000 people with a much broader global reach in the US, in Europe, and in India.
Wow, that is incredible. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your story and your background and all the amazing things that led you to where you are right now. That's incredible. So many questions in a good way. But let's dive in a little bit about, so tell us a little bit more about your role right now and what are you excited about as this consultancy continues to grow and new opportunities arise? What's on the future for you?
Yeah, so now I lead one of 3 business units here at Marinex. So I lead our CRO and consulting services business unit, and that encompasses regulatory, quality, and clinical, as well as commercial strategy, market access, reimbursement, things like coding, coverage, payment. So we help mid-size, early stage, and some of the largest strategic medtech companies, as well as some biopharma as well, with companion diagnostics, navigate sometimes the tumultuous waters needed to bring a device from inception all the way through to commercialization. Marinex also has 2 other business units in preclinical, as well as extensive design, development, and engineering. So there's leaders in each of those capacities. And what we do on CRO and consulting services is really consultative. So we work with clients to develop strategies in all of these areas, and then we roll up our sleeves and work alongside them to make sure that those strategies are actually executable. So to help them along the way. And some of our clients have teams, so it's strategic and we're advisors. Other clients, if they're early, may not have extensive expertise or the ability to build out teams in that way. So we go in, or our team goes in and really provides them that support along the entire continuum. It's interesting. Just today, we have a client we've been working with for 2 years. They're in Switzerland, but they've been working with our US and global team. They just got news from FDA that they obtained FDA clearance. And I will tell you, I think our team is as excited as theirs because when you're in a company, it's all that you're living, breathing, doing. When you're consulting, you're a little bit at an arm's length. So when our clients achieve their results, and it's their work, but in concert with ours, the feeling of accomplishment really is just, it's one of those that's explosive. So we've celebrated that. We ring a bell. We'll share a lot. We'll do some marketing around it with this client. But it's really fun. That's the part that really drives not just me, but members of our team as to how can we help more companies get more products to patients.
I love that. First of all, congratulations. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled for your clients and for you guys because it matters so much. And what a great milestone. So that's wonderful. But so I'm curious. You've seen a lot of different sides to med tech and to the business side of things. And I'm curious, what are some potential stumbling blocks that you have seen that companies, especially when they're perhaps a little bit younger or earlier on in the process, maybe 1 or 2 stumbling blocks that you see that you think, you know what, hey, if we put a little bit of thought into this, we can overcome this very easily, but we need to be thinking about this from the start.
Okay, there's 2 things. One of them is going to be a shameless plug, but I swear it's true, and that's quality. I think companies don't focus enough on quality systems because it's just not the fun or sexy thing. But it's literally where we see companies struggle because they think about it too late. They do just in time. They think an EQMS is the answer, and it's not the only answer. It's a component. So quality would be the short answer. The longer answer is people. So what we see is oftentimes people, especially in a cost-constrained environment, which we are today, where fundraising is tough, people do need to be financially astute as far as what they're spending and how they're spending it. But sometimes you get more by spending a little bit more to get the right advice. So, for example, if somebody is expert in engineering or expert in regulatory, excellent. Know where your expertise is not, and then supplement. So either hire a consultant or bring on an employee or have a member of your board that can advise in that way. More often than not, we see people trying to just kind of figure it out as they go, which isn't a bad strategy, but there are critical decisions and inflection points along the way. For example, if you're developing a clinical trial, thinking only about your regulatory strategy and not about your commercial goals or the claims you're going to make, you're going to have to ultimately spend twice as much when you have to do secondary studies that you could have avoided by including that in endpoints. So there's little things like that along the way where if you don't know what you don't know, it's really difficult to see those hurdles. It's helpful to bring in people, even in an advisory capacity, to help you say, okay, these are the hurdles that you're going to face. You're going to have new hurdles that maybe then you won't know or people won't know, but it's really making sure that you surround yourself with experts in those key areas.
That's great advice. Experts in those key areas. Well, speaking to the advisory point, I'd actually love to talk about your involvement with MedtechWOMEN and tell us a little bit about that organization and how it serves women in this industry.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. It's something that I could literally talk about for this entire podcast. So I alluded to it earlier, but MedtechWOMEN, I got, and I say roped in lovingly, but I was introduced to this organization, gosh, maybe a decade ago now, when I was at Covidian and then Medtronic, and a mentor of mine, Amy Beltramundo, was one of the founders of MedtechWOMEN. And she had mentioned to me, because there weren't a lot of female leaders within that section of my business at the time. So I was paired with her, and it feels like kismet because she was this spark of like, this is what badass female leadership looks like. She knew her stuff. She was really focused on the issues. She made time and said yes. Anytime I had a question or wanted to meet, our conversations were really meaningful and actionable. Sometimes we just talked as friends. It wasn't always so agenda based, but she introduced me to MedtechWOMEN and shared with me that there's this organization. It's all volunteers. It's kind of membership based. And it's literally women getting together, talking about the issues in our industry. And it wasn't as focused on things like work-life balance, which quite frankly is a challenge no matter what your gender is. There are great forums for talking about work-life balance and how you prioritize your health and your mental well-being. And that is really, really important. But some of the events that I had gone to as far as women in leadership or women in medtech were really focused on those things. And that wasn't what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to see incredible pioneers or trailblazers in our industry talking about the things that mattered in industry and sharing their perspectives. And that's exactly really the thesis of MedtechWOMEN. And so it was an organization founded over a decade ago. It started really as just an annual event, this MedTech Vision event, where we brought women together on a podium talking about the issues impacting healthcare today. And it evolved. So after a couple of years and a couple of different topics, what we started to see is that there was a real thirst in the community that we had beyond just that individual or that one time a year we got together for the event. And so we developed a kind of MedtechWOMEN 2.0. We brought on an executive director, and we essentially launched a much, much grander vision of what MedtechWOMEN was. So it included membership, it included mentorship, so formal pairings. We created a board of directory, kind of a pathway to get to more women on boards. We also have local events, networking events, virtual events in partnership with our sister organizations like MedTech Color and Diversity by Doing. And then, of course, we still have our annual event. And then just this past month, we actually brought on a new executive director. Her name is Yvonne Bogelman. She is a longtime industry veteran, tremendous leader in MedTech, and someone who's really passionate about the organization, the mission, the vision. So we're excited to see what she will do in her role here.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about the organization and its history and who it is serving. And it really resonated because I agree with you that there's wonderful platforms for being able to talk about some of the topics that tend to come up quite a bit for women, especially women leaders. And I love the fact that you are fully acknowledging that those things are great as well, but that your focus is a little bit different. And so I'm curious, what are some interesting stories or things that have happened, maybe unexpectedly, from this network of incredible women supporting each other, learning from each other? Can you share a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, many of us that have been members for a long period of time will attest to the fact that job opportunities come via this network, learning opportunities, sales and business opportunities. I mean, we network in the same way that we would in any other conference or any other meeting, but deals certainly have gotten done within and at MedtechWOMEN and MedTech Vision events. But most importantly, and one of the things that I always tout is that MedtechWOMEN is a sisterhood that will take that call. And what I mean by that is if you have a question, if you need to phone a friend, going back to what we were talking about earlier of that network of you don't know what you don't know, but somebody probably does. In MedtechWOMEN, someone definitely does. And so what we encourage our members and our mentors and anyone that's a part of the organization to do is reach forward and reach back. And so when I say take that call, if someone calls, and I just had literally 3 conversations in the last 3 weeks with more junior people looking for career advice or wanting to have a question about regulatory, or they're thinking about a decision point in their job and what should they do? I always take that call. And, we're all busy. We all have things to do, but that 30-minute conversation can have a really big difference. And I know for me, likewise, when I have a question, when I'm coming up against something where it's helpful to have a thought partner, sometimes you want that outside of your own company or outside of your boss or outside of your team. And so the MedtechWOMEN network is incredibly powerful and very supportive. And in my experience, and I tried it both ways, we will always take that call.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So, okay. So mentorship and leadership is obviously a key component of your life, something that you're passionate about. From your own experience as a woman in this industry, are there any things that come to mind that you would say, just pieces of advice, let's say for other women who might be younger in their career and they're looking to grow, they're looking to become leaders, they're looking to become maybe thought leaders or own their own company, things like that. What are some things that you might suggest to them from your own experience would be helpful?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lindsey, because there's a lot of things I wish we could just mind share. First and foremost, I would tell women to go for it. I think sometimes we self-sabotage or hold ourselves back if we don't have all of the information or feel like we're 100% qualified. And there's been tons of studies that demonstrate that. So first and foremost, go for it. I had this conversation with one of my mentees who was taking on a new role. And I said, it's okay that you're feeling this way or that way. Do it, and do it scared. Like, it's okay to not feel like you have all of the confidence, right? And it doesn't mean fake it till you make it, although there's a little bit of that too. But I would say don't let fear hold you back. So that would be the first piece of it. The other piece of it is make sure that you have really your own board, meaning advocates, mentors, coaches, thought partners, people that you can reach out to and rely upon. And that has to work both ways. I will tell you, I have learned as much from mentees as I have learned from mentors. And so recognizing that knowledge is shared both ways, no matter what your seniority is. For people that are junior, they have their finger on the pulse of things that I'm not as privy to. And sometimes I feel that even more strongly. Likewise, for people that have been in this industry 40, 50 years, they have institutional knowledge that I only wish that I had. And so being at this midpoint in my career, I'm sandwiched between both. Really appreciate. So I would implore people that are hoping and wanting to pursue leadership, go for it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I love that advice. I really appreciate it. So you have had such an interesting career and going from communication and sales and then to this new role and chief operating officer, all these cool things. For your own leadership style, what would you say are maybe 1 or 2 key things that you have found to be really helpful for you as a leader in the industry in the way that you approach the people that you lead?
Another great question, Lindsey. So I would say, well, first, maybe I'll share some lessons learned because I've made a ton of mistakes. So I think one of the things that I didn't appreciate early on as a leader that I definitely appreciate now is that we all have our own lens, our view with which we take on and see the world. And that's the view in which you know. And so as a leader, initially, my thought was, well, everyone kind of sees and feels it this way with their own flavor. That is not true. Everyone has their own view, and that's really shaped by their family, their background, their culture, lots of different aspects. And so I think for me, some advice for a leader would be humble, take the time to really seek to understand. And then even if you are heightening your communication, multiply that times 3 or 4, and then you're probably scratching the surface. Because people need to hear things different ways multiple times. It doesn't mean you need to micromanage or drill things down, but when you're leading an organization and bringing people along on a change, especially, it is important that people understand the why, the who, the what, the how come, and that they hear that repeatedly so that they can understand it, they can buy into it, and that you're creating an environment to make sure that their questions are addressed. So lesson learned, kind of recommendation on the leadership piece. I think the other just piece of advice is that sometimes people aspire to leadership because they think it's glamorous or there's going to be a lot of money there, or it looks like the leader doesn't have to do that much work. They're delegating. What I would say is leadership is not glamorous. It's often thankless. It's super hard. I work tons of hours and I love the team that I work with. And so for me, the why is that. But if you're not loving that, don't do that. There's plenty of opportunities that you can contribute meaningfully as an individual contributor or principal or a subject matter expert, and that's great too. So know that if you want to lead people and be involved on that left side of leadership, I welcome it. I think it's fantastic. I think there's a lot of people that get into it with a misconception of what it will look like. And I will tell you, it's worthwhile, but it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you were talking about that, the glamour side of things, I just remember so vividly, and I joke about it because I think it's funny, but very quickly, I used to own my own dance studio and I built that from the ground up. And people would say things to me like, oh my goodness, what you do, you're living your dream. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, how cool is that? And inside, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I spent the first 2 hours as the janitor this morning, and then the next 2 hours as the CEO. And then, and it's funny, but it's true. You wear a lot of hats as a leader, and sometimes your job is literally getting down into the nitty gritty and cleaning up. And that's fine too.
So I love that. Because my quip is always from the janitor to the GM, like what needs to get done. There's no task too big or too small. And ultimately, I think that what you described it yourself, and I love that, is servant leadership, right? Like for me, I've always responded well when a leader isn't above any task and doesn't ask for something that they themselves would not be willing or aren't willing to do along with their team member. And again, that's not the definition of leadership, but in my eyes, that's a definition of leadership that really resonates with me.
I agree. Yeah. Well, speaking of the stories and those kinds of fun things too, are there any that stand out to you, perhaps along your career or with MedtechWOMEN or anything really, that just affirm to you that, hey, I am in the right industry at the right time doing what I should be doing?
Oh, yes. So there's a couple of different specific examples. So firstly, one of the things that has happened as of late, and I feel like not to get too woo or California on you, but these synchronicities where you'll be thinking about something or remembering something and suddenly a project and people come together around it. And again, I think that's part of the power of the network. But there was a friend of mine that I had run into at a conference. We were talking about a specific aspect of their business that was really needing some development. And it turned out that after that conversation, literally not a week later, I got a call from a prospective client that was interested in working in this specific space. We were able to connect them with this person that was in need of that exact thing. And it was with software and with AI. And so a partnership was forged. And now they are literally about to embark in this really explosive, and an announcement will be forthcoming about it. But there's so many examples of little nuances and synchronicities like that again happen because of staying open, staying curious, that powerful network, right place, right time. But I also think it's the magic of our industry. It's really small. People sometimes fail to appreciate because you have these large organizations that are hundreds of thousands of people, but the leaders within the organization are fairly connected and tight. It's really an interconnected ecosystem. So that's just kind of one broad example. There's also other really small examples of the power, I think, of MedtechWOMEN in just how it ignites and how it brings people together, especially across senior and junior roles. So when we do our networking events, we try to do them regionally just to try to bring different people together. And you can have like the CEO of sometimes a large organization, like Lisa Earnhardt from Abbott is a member and an active participant. She often will come to events talking to someone who's their very first year in med. And when you see these examples of sponsors of ours really showing up and demonstrating commitment to giving back, and you see these people that are junior that may not even know the seniority of the leader that they're speaking to, recognizing that we're all people at the end of the day, trying to really ideally propel healthcare and help patients in their journeys to health and wellness. And so when you see examples of those sparks and those little ignites and connects, it reinforces why we're here, what it is we're doing, and really the power of the organization.
Yeah. Well, I think that the more times that you get to see those connection points and those synergies or whatever we want to call them, I think that does impact us in a way that goes, yeah, the work that I do matters and it's impacting people's lives and maybe in very different ways. So some of it is, yeah, that end user and that patient and, oh my goodness, what this device can do for them and their quality of life. And sometimes it's the person behind the invention and what does that journey look like for them personally and the impact on their own family and their life. So I love hearing about those connection points.
Well, and that's the joy
Yeah.
of working also with, large strategics for sure, but the startup companies, oftentimes it's a physician and engineer. The physician is seeing the unmet need because of the patients coming into their clinic. They're feeling hopeless because they can't address it, but also empowered because they know what to do. So those are the really fun kind of feel good projects, especially because there's no one better equipped than a clinician, right? To say, okay, here's the gap. Engineers can help to design and develop, but oftentimes that's where the teams are sort of left in the lurch to say, okay, what do we do from here? And so it is incredibly powerful to enable these innovators, no matter what their backgrounds are, along that journey. And it's not a quick one. As you know, being on the manufacturing side, it's not something that's quick or easy. It's not something that is a high success rate. And when it works, there is no better feeling. When you commercialize a device or when you get it through the FDA, that's just the start. When it's actually used in patients and you start to hear those patient advocates and those stories and you expand indications and are able to help more patients, that's the thing that makes it worthwhile. And when the going gets tough, because it does, those are the stories, right, that really inspire us to continue.
Yes, absolutely. Amen to that. So, okay. So I have so many thoughts swirling around, but I do want to pivot the conversation a little bit just for fun. So imagine that you were to be offered $1 million to teach a masterclass on anything you want. It can be within your industry, but it doesn't have to be. What would you choose to teach?
I love this question. I'll try to make it not about our industry because I've been
Okay.
working on a lot lately and it's a testament to patience, which is something that I think we could all use more of, but I could definitely use more of. So we rescued a dog in COVID. She's a Doberman pit mix. Her name is Poppy, and she's delightful. And she was severely neglected. So when we got her, we knew she was really shut down and that we would have to do work to bring her out of her shell. My husband and I don't have kids. We have a quiet home. I knew that we could take that on. And so while I won't say I'm the expert, what I have done in the 4 years we've now had her is extensively worked with her on what I call the art of the dog walk. So we have learned how to really master exercise, training, and discipline as a way to show affection. Because for a dog that's shut down like that, that's really what she needed to thrive. It was humbling and very educational for me. I've always been a huge animal lover. I used to volunteer when I had a lot more time with an animal rescue. And so I was able to parlay that and work with a trainer really on honing those skills so that Poppy could not just be social in the world, but be less shut down. So it would be so fun to share a masterclass on that because I had so many reflections and learnings on patience, the art of going slow, the art of taking in the world, of just slowing that down, not being on my phone, right? Being really present with her. And I sort of joke with my husband. I feel like now when I walk her, I don't know if you've seen the movie Avatar, but like they're avatars and we roll on in the world and it's meditative. It's our morning practice. And it's something that for me has been incredibly rewarding and challenging and a huge learning experience that I would love to share.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm a huge dog lover. So anytime someone's telling me about their dog, it's just instant happiness.
Likewise. And for my favorite thing, but it will always bring a smile to my face, is the unlikely animal friends. Like if you see like and a dog or a kookaburra or something, you're like, oh.
It's so cute. It's precious. Yes, I love it. And to me, it reinforces, hey, we can actually all get along if we try. I mean, I know it's a little different in the animal kingdom, but still, I still love that. Oh my goodness, great. Well, then how do you wish to be remembered after you leave this world?
Legacy is something that I think is important. It's funny. I've been working with my niece on her college essays and college admittance and reflecting back to my views when I was 18 versus my views today in the world now. And even speaking to my mom about legacy, because it's something, she's approaching her 80s that she thinks more and more about. So it's conversations that we have a lot. I really would love to be remembered as an enabler, as someone who really enables those around me to be successful, to achieve more, to obtain what they want, right? To drive forward, and loves being around creative people and innovators and people with really expansive imaginations. And I think my superpower is kind of capturing and enabling those things. So it would be great to be able to enable more people around me. And that's true with patients and healthcare, the clients that we support as well. One of the things that has always been pointed out to me, and again, my grandfather was a huge proponent of this, is when things aren't going well in the world, you could focus on what's going wrong or you can look for the helpers. And so as a surgeon, he was one of those helpers. And so I think he ingrained that in me very early on. And so I'd love to be remembered as someone who is a helpful enabler.
Yes, that's a beautiful legacy. I love
I'm
that.
curious, Lindsey, I know this is like, you're the you're the interviewer, but how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, thank you for asking. First time. You know, there are so many things that I love doing for other people, but I really actually resonated with your idea of enabling. And I would say mine is very similar. And that is that I love helping people achieve their dreams. And that can look like lots of different things to lots of different people. So it's when I'm working with a company, it always started with one person's idea, right? All these big companies started off as this tiny little one person's idea that became something. And I think just helping those sparks, especially when maybe they're eager, but they're not quite ready. They're scared, they're nervous, they're whatever. And helping them see a clear path to achieving those dreams and goals is one of my favorite things. And whether that's just a personal, I want to run a marathon, I don't even know how to get started, or whether it's, yeah, I have this great idea for a book, but I'm concerned about like nobody will read it, no one will care. Well, that's not the point. Let's start somewhere. And so I think for me, it's about empowering people to live the life that they want to live and hope that they can live. That's what I would love to be remembered for.
That's beautiful. I hope via this and the other things that you're doing, it seems like you're already on that track.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate you asking me too. Thank you. Well, and then final question, and you've sort of perhaps alluded to this. I'll see if it's different than your first time. What is one thing that makes you smile every time you see or think about it?
Well, definitely the unlikely animal pairings for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Anytime with family. Family is super important to me. So anytime I can spend time with our family, that is for me, a smile doesn't go off of my face. And also kind of what you said, celebrating other people's wins. And I celebrate my own as well. I think it's important that we do that. But there is nothing like it's a grin. Like when someone on our team has an accomplishment, the grin is twice as big, right? Because you just to see that reflected, that success, that attainment, that win reflected for the people that you work alongside, that brings a smile to my face every time.
Yeah. Nothing quite like it. And it's so powerful. Yeah. Huh. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I don't really want it to end, but I know we have other things we have to get to today. So I just want to take some time to say thank you so very much for being here with me, Jessica. Thank you for sharing all about your incredible career so far and all the exciting things that are to come and speaking to MedtechWOMEN and that incredible organization. So I'm really excited for our listeners who might not have been familiar with it to go check it out. Lots of opportunity there. And gosh, I just wish you the most continued success as you work to change lives for a better world.
Thank you, Lindsey, for hosting. And I would encourage anybody who's unfamiliar with MedtechWOMEN, if you're new to industry or if you've been here a while, there is a place for you within MedtechWOMEN. Membership is super low cost. It's $150 for standard membership a year, $75 for junior members. You can follow us on LinkedIn, but highly, highly encourage everyone to join the network. And thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit more about MedtechWOMEN today.
Of course. We are so honored to be making a donation on your behalf as a thank you for your time today to Save the Children, which works to end the cycle of poverty by ensuring communities have the resources to provide children with a healthy, educational, and safe environment. So thank you so much for choosing that charity to support. Thank you also to our listeners for tuning in. And if you're feeling as inspired as I am right now, I'd love it if you'd share this episode with a colleague or two, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Lindsey.
The Leading Difference is brought to you by Velentium. Velentium is a full-service CDMO with 100% in-house capability to design, develop, and manufacture medical devices from Class 2 wearables to Class 3 active implantable medical devices. Velentium specializes in active implantables, leads, programmers, and accessories across a wide range of indications, such as neuromodulation, deep brain stimulation, cardiac management, and diabetes management. Velentium's core competencies include electrical, firmware, and mechanical design, mobile apps, embedded cybersecurity, human factors and usability, automated test systems, systems engineering, and contract manufacturing. Velentium works with clients worldwide, from startups seeking funding to established Fortune 100 companies. Visit Velentium.com to explore your next step in medical device development.